Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Monday Fun Day. And today, I hope it's going to be something interesting because I have something to share that's something that I enjoy reading about and watching and talking about. And so today, we're going to talk about time travel. Now, for those of you who know me, I love technical things. So when I can get something and they explain the math and the physics and things like this. Um, it always makes me really curious. So, we're going to talk about some of my favorite stories about time travel and things that I would highly recommend for example, reading books or watching movies. And so, I'm going to have a few ideas for these. Um, One of the problems with time travel, lots of time travel stories are really bad. Really bad because time travel often has a thing like a paradox. And this is something, for example, if someone gives me a time machine and then I go back in time, let's say 100 years, and kill his grandparents, then before his parents were ever born, then he was never born, so he never made the time machine. So how could I go back in time to kill him without the time machine because he never invented it? And so these type of paradoxes are kind of funny, and are they real? Well, I enjoy reading lots of the physics stuff, and actually, one of the ideas is that if I go back in time and make a sudden change, then there becomes the world pretty much splits. The universe, not just the world, everything splits, and now there's two copies, and so we have two timelines. And in fact, there are some theories that there's multiple timelines in all the places around. For example, there's one where I decided this morning to drink tea instead of coffee. And so there's actually an infinite number of universes happening at the same time parallelly. And even in one of those, it's possible that I love dancing. So anything is possible. And so we're going to talk about some things like that. And what I'm going to talk about more are like the perfect stories, the really perfect ones that deal with some of the problems that are known. And I guess we should start off with one of the favorites from my childhood, and that would be, for example, Back to the Future. Back to the Future does a wonderful job of when you go into the past, it changes the future. And so sometimes he had to go further into the past to change something before there was a change here. And so you had the problem of if you change the past, then of course the present is different. The movies were incredible. So there were three movies, probably one of the best trilogies ever. The only problem I ever had with Back to the Future, and this is one problem with lots of time travel. Let's say that I go back and change the past, and so now today's different. So let's say, for example, I go back in time and I don't know, give Daisy away. Daisy, uh, it's an example, okay, so don't worry. Let's say I go give her away. Daisy's my cat. You'll probably see her later in this film walking around. If I give her away, then I would have memories. For example, if I went back last year and gave her away to someone, I would have memories for a year of having a cat that actually didn't happen. So I would have kind of false memories, and lots of stories deal with this, that the memories would slowly disappear, and it's the problem, would they be erased by new memories? It's difficult to say in theory because probably something like that you would go crazy because you would remember things that weren't actually true, and probably at the same time other things happen that you would have no memory of, and so this would probably drive you a little crazy. So that's only one problem. Of course, I loved the Terminator movies. Well, the first and the second Terminator movies were really good because they dealt with things that time travel, and they dealt with everything properly. But movies movies are always kind of weak, and one thing that I probably inherited from my mom and my dad, probably more my dad, is just love of reading books. And so my whole family, we eat books and we read all the time. And you know, my mom jokes that if you ask her what time it is, she might explain how to make a clock. And I would probably do differently, because I would probably explain exactly what is time, and the clock would be different for you than it would be for me because everything's relative. And so I would probably go off into more of the physics. and my sister might describe the legal definitions of time and some things like that. So we all over-explain things too too far. And so this is always fun to try and get a simple answer from my family, because it doesn't really happen. Probably that's why I'm having a lot of fun doing these videos, just because I can sit and talk for half an hour or so about whatever I want, and it's actually kind of fun. Okay, so one of the best authors I've found for time travel is Robert Heinlein. I've read lots of his stuff. Some of his books are a little weird. Socially speaking, he was very open about lots of things, so some of his books were really, really weird, and I wouldn't recommend some of the books for children. But the books that I'm going to be talking about now, well, probably all but one of them, these were kind of short stories, and one was a book, short story, and one was a real short story. But probably one of my favorites is the medium level book. It's I read it last night again just to remind it. It took me about 45 minutes to read it. It's not a long story. And it's called By His Bootstraps. By His Bootstraps. And it's an idiom in English. Bootstraps are the little tabs on your shoes that help pull you up, pull up your shoes. And when you pull yourself up by your bootstrap, it's an impossible task, but it's meant to be like helping yourself. So helping yourself and not getting help from someone else. So it's like the idea of independence and doing things on your own. And so this story is about a guy who went back in time, did some time traveling to help himself. And I'm going to use some props today. I hope it goes well. I'm a little nervous about this because to give the example of one of the cleverest things that I've read. And I wish I had come up with this idea because it was kind of fun. So my props are, there was this guy, and we'll call him the cowboy. So the cowboy was sitting in his room when Harry Potter came in, and the knight, I guess everyone can see these, and the knight. So we've got three people, and he's in the room, and someone else comes through a time travel in the room also, and someone else later comes in. So at the same time, there's three people. And what you don't realize until kind of the end of their discussion, because then they start discussing and fighting, of course, and things like this. But then you realize that this is all the same person. So he's actually discussing things with himself. And so first you're in the perspective of him not knowing anything. So you're kind of like, wow, what's going on in this story? Two other guys are coming through this time gate. And so then he goes forward in time a little bit, gets some information, then he comes back in time as Harry Potter, and then he tries to make himself go through the time gate. And this is funny, that he went through the time gate because he went back in time through the time gate to help himself go through the time gate that he had already gone through. So it's kind of this thing, it's the idea, do we have any choice in what's happening? And so the second part of this same discussion was held with the perspective here. And of course, he had a little more knowledge, so he kind of knew a little bit more of what was going on. And then it ended up that he made himself go through the time hole. They were arguing. He goes back to the future, and I didn't even plan on saying that. And then he gets in an argument with someone else, and then he tries to stop himself from going through the time gate. So he comes back again, and now you're at the night. Wow, what a handsome knight. You're at the night to try and stop him from going through. Of course, could he stop him from going through? No, because it already happened, even though it happened in his past and his past, but because it already happened, you can't stop it. And so it was the idea of especially here, he was trying to change the situation, and it was funny because he couldn't change it at all. And it was a pretty little funny story about what was happening, because you go through the same conversation 3 times, each time with a little more knowledge of what's happening, and also different goals that they had it. So yeah, he was in the room. I guess I'll show it. He started in the room, went forward in time, went back into time to talk to himself, and then later he went forward in time and then back in time even more to try and stop the same situation. And so it was called By His Bootstraps. And to be honest, I would love to see a movie. As far as I know, there hasn't been a movie made about this. I would love to see it. There was another movie, book by Robert Heinlein, actually a short story, real short story, maybe only like 15 pages, called All You Zombies. And this one might not be exactly be for children, but it's also dealing with lots of complicated paradoxes that are perfectly solved. So whenever you have the idea of this is no problems at all with time travel, there's never going to be anything, but wait a second, how is this possible? No, everything is dealt with perfectly, that there are no times when I can say, I don't believe that was going to happen, except for the time travel thing. I mean, if you have that, then that's something else. And so it comes to the idea, is time travel actually possible? And the answer is probably yes, but actually no. Because even if you could have time travel possible, it probably would have two limitations. That number one, it would probably cost an incredible amount of energy. I mean, if it costs to send, like, for example, 1 gram of matter back in time, and let's say it costs you the energy from the whole world for 100 years, then even though it is possible, it isn't possible. So that's where you get the answer yes, but actually no. And then I'd like to talk about one other thing that I found in a movie that I went and did some research after selling this, because every once in a while I get things that I say, wow, I don't even know if that's true or not. Is that how it works? And insane curiosity always just forces me to go and stop pretty much everything I'm doing and go find out if that's actually what happens and if that's actually true. And this is a movie called Primer. Primer, I have to say, was a terrible movie. It was made in, hold on, let me check, 2004. And it's probably one of the most intelligent movies I've ever seen, with probably some of the worst acting, worst scenes, worst everything in it is pretty simple. As far as I know, it was they call it, according to Wikipedia, extremely low budget. And yeah, you can tell it's extremely low budget in everything. It almost looks like what it would be like if I decided to make a movie with some friends of mine, and we used my camera to record it, and then did some video editing and decided to make a film. I don't know if it was even that popular, but the film, as far as the content it's amazing. It actually kind of reminded me of when I was in high school. I was helping with the production of Taming of the Shrew. A friend of mine and he was doing photography, and I was just kind of helping. I don't know, I was like 13, 14 years old, so I was just kind of helping. And I ended up watching Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. I watched the play while they were practicing and doing all of this, and I probably watched it like 5 or 6 times. And I was amazed because every time I watched it, I understood it a little better. And every time I watched it, there was something new, and I was like, wow, I didn't notice that before. So it got better each time. And I have to say that Primer is also one of these stories. The first time you watch it, you're going to be thinking it's like, wow, I did not understand a thing. And so I took it as a personal challenge. It's like a challenge accepted. I'm going to understand it, to either say that, oh, I understand what they're trying to say and it's stupid, or I understand what they're saying and it's brilliant. And I found out it was brilliant because it takes one of the basic ideas of time travel, that if it's possible and practical, what's going to happen, I cannot go back in time to, let's say, to 50 years ago and look up a bunch of sports results, or I would probably just look up the stock market, or I would just write a note to myself about the stock market, or to my mom. I would probably write a note to my mom and give stock reports and tell her to buy Xerox and IBM and to buy Google in the very beginning. And right now I'd probably say, and somewhere around when you hear about Bitcoins coming out, buy them immediately and buy as many as you can right away. So that's something that I would give myself information. But it would be impossible. And why? If time travel exists, what it means that I would have to set an anchor point. For example, I could set an anchor point Monday morning, where are we? March 29th. And so I could set an anchor point, and then from a certain point in the future, I can come back to my point. And so I could do something here, then I could go back inside, and then I can do the same period again. And so basically what it would let me do is it would let me repeat and be, I guess, around for at the same time in parallel. I don't know what would happen if you saw yourself. You would probably just go crazy. I don't know what would happen if you touch yourself. Sometimes in movies they had where if you touch yourself, then it destroys matter and things are going crazy. But yeah, that's probably the only way to make it work. And Primer does things like this, that they were using, for example, 12 hours. And so they would have to go sit in the box for 12 hours and do things and basically set an anchor point to where they could go in the future, and then they can go back. And so that's an idea that that's pretty much it. I couldn't go back to a random time in the past, like, oh, I'll pick this day and just go back in time. What I would have to do is I would have to set an anchor point. And for example, from here, I could come back from next week to right now. And so that would be good. Let's see, any other funny stories or things? There is one other story. Wow, also by Heinlein. I love his time travel stories. And probably this is interesting because of the title. Title is called The Door into Summer. And one funny thing about Robert Heinlein, and I guess I can understand this, he loved cats. And so lots of his stories he had cats, and lots of his stories he had people who liked cats, and lots of it was the discussion about people who know how to treat a cat properly and people who don't. And so if you have cats, then you know you might, if you have a cat that likes you and treats you properly, then that means you know how to treat cats, because cats aren't the same as dogs. Cats are completely, they're noble animals, I guess you could call it. I live with 2 cats at home, and one is my little sweetie, and she's over there sleeping, ignoring me. And another one was here before I moved in, and he doesn't like me very much because he's extremely jealous. But the title is called The Door into Summer. And he got this, the title was because the guy who owned a cat was living in a rented house once, and there were 13 doors to get outside, and it was in the mountains. And the cat didn't like the snow, and so when it was snowing and the cat wanted to go outside, he would go to each door to see if it was still snowing through those doors. And so sometimes it's the idea of looking for something that's a little better. The Door into Summer was kind of clever because he went in like to hibernation. So he was in deep freeze, so that he froze himself. And so he woke up 30 years later, and then he went back in time and he did a bunch of work and invented a lot of things, and then froze himself again, and then went back into the future again. So it was a lot of time traveling using deep freeze, so going into hibernation, and then a little bit of time travel. And it was kind of funny because it dealt with lots of the things when he was working with the time travel person. The guy was doing something and he's like, yeah, I know I did this right now because I saw the results last week. And so I found the results. And so he knew that whatever he had to do in the future, it had to be the results from then. And so that's just always something that's kind of fun. Yeah, time travel movies. I love them. The smart ones. Of course, stupid ones are just stupid. And some are better than others. It's always so difficult to get the time travel working properly because it always makes me laugh when someone's like, hurry, we have to get to our time machine. And it's like, if you have a time machine, then you have all the time you need because you can just repeat things. And so that's kind of funny because there's no reason to hurry. Well, I hope you liked my models. Yeah, like I said, I have cowboys and Harry Potters, and I have a bunch of Lego characters. So I love the little Lego guys. I need to be getting more, and so that's going to be fun to probably for my birthday. Who knows? Maybe for my birthday I'll get some. Thank you very much. I hope this was interesting for you guys. I would highly recommend the books. In fact, I'll probably write them in the comments, the books and movies that I talked about today, because those are kind of fun. And I guess, all the time, if I really like something and think that it's good, I always like to share things that I find interesting, because who knows, maybe someone else will find something that they didn't know about and they'll be like, wow, this is pretty interesting. And so then the world gets to be a little better place. Thank you very much, and have a fun day on this Monday. Thank you.